Okay, good morning, class. So, as you know, lately in the past few weeks, we've been talking about different ways that we can understand what an author means by what he or she is saying in the text. So we've learned a bunch of different strategies, and today we're going to learn another one of those. And the strategy that we're going to learn today is drawing inferences. And so the reason why we need to draw inferences in a text is because a lot of times the author just doesn't quite tell us exactly what he or she means. So a lot of times, in order to engage the reader more, in order to make the reader more excited about what's going on, the author kind of holds some information in and doesn't quite reveal that to us. And so in some cases, we have to draw inferences, or we have to infer based on what the author is saying in the text, different things about what's going on, or how characters are feeling, or what characters are thinking. So today we're going to focus mainly on analyzing what characters might be thinking or feeling by drawing inferences. And so the different ways that we draw inferences are, one, by using background knowledge. So that means taking everything that's up here, all of the context that we bring to the books that we read. So that could mean memories that we have, or knowledge that we have about the world, anything that we have experienced or witnessed or seen that might affect how we are reading the text. And the second thing is word choice, or author's clues. And so this means maybe the author is using action words, or maybe the author is just using really vivid description and imagery in order to show us, instead of just explicitly telling us what the author is thinking or feeling. And so that could be using rhetorical devices, or, like I said, action words, vivid imagery, vivid description. And the last way is by asking questions. So what that's going to look like is, or what that looks like for anyone who is reading, is the reader will go through, and when the reader comes upon something that seems a little, that seems like it might be telling us, oh, maybe that is something that's showing what the character is feeling or what the character is thinking, we can ask questions and say, why did the author use that word? Or why did the author talk about this specific topic? And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And the passage that I want to read, okay, everybody hold on to your pants because you might just jump out of your seats. The passage that we're going to be reading today is from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I know, I can hardly contain my excitement either. So this is by J.K. Rowling, and we're going to be starting with the chapter called The Sorting Hat. And so if you don't know, throughout this chapter, the protagonist, Harry Potter, has just arrived at Hogwarts, and we don't quite know how he's feeling yet, but a lot of the language that the author uses is going to give us a hint into it. So he's found out, just to give you some context, he's found out that before he can even go into Hogwarts, he's going to have to take a test. So just think about, we can already go ahead and start using our background knowledge and thinking about how that might make us feel. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and read our passage, and I'm going to be stopping every now and then throughout the passage at different parts. And I'm going to talk to you about how I'm thinking through the ways that I'm thinking. So as I am reading and drawing inferences, I'm going to stop every now and then and talk about the different kinds of inferences that I'm drawing, and we can discuss those together. The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you're waiting. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's coat. This is Professor McGonagall. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, and on Ron's smudged nose. Harry tried to flatten his hair. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor McGonagall. "Please wait quietly." She left the chamber. Harry swallowed. Okay, I'm going to stop right there, even though it's at the very beginning. So we have an action word right here, and that word is swallowed. I'm going to put that right here in the word choice category. So we know, maybe from reading other books, or maybe from personal experience even, that when we swallow, that means that we might be feeling a little bit of uneasiness. Okay, I'm going to continue. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" he asks Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry's heart gave a horrible jolt. Okay, another action word. A horrible jolt? This is not sounding too good for Harry. A test? In front of the whole school? But he didn't know any magic yet. What on earth would he have to do? He hadn't expected something like this the moment they arrived. He looked around and saw that everyone else looked terrified too. That's another pretty colorful word choice, I would say. No one was talking much except Hermione Granger, who was whispering very fast about all the spells she learned and wondering which one she'd need. Classic Hermione. Harry tried hard not to listen to her. He kept his eyes fixed on the door. Any second now, Professor McGonagall would come back and lead him to his doom. Okay, that is some pretty strong language right there. Doom. "Now, form a line," Professor McGonagall told the first years, "and follow me." Feeling oddly as though his legs had turned into lead, Harry got into line behind a boy with sandy hair, with Ron behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the great hall. Okay, I'm going to read this line again because I think this is really good. It says, "Feeling oddly as though his legs had turned to lead." Okay, so this is a simile right here, and we know, because we're humans, that legs actually can't turn into lead. But I think this is a good opportunity to access our background knowledge and to talk about what do we know about lead that could help us to understand more about what Harry's feeling right here. So what I know about lead is that it's really, really heavy. And so I don't know if you guys have ever felt like this, but when your legs start to feel really, really heavy and it feels like you don't even want to walk and it feels like you have to drag your body along to wherever you're going, I think that's what he's talking about. I think that's what he's talking about when he says his legs started to feel like lead. Harry quickly looked down again as Professor McGonagall silently placed a four-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard's hat. He stared at it, too. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched. What? A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a hat smarter than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat and I can cap them all. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can't see. So try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring nerve and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap. So I'm thinking that Harry is a little bit afraid of this decision that's about to be going on. Have you ever been afraid of a decision that might decide what the rest of your year is looking like? Like maybe you were really afraid of choosing which class to take this semester. Obviously you chose the right one, but maybe you were really afraid of which class you were going to take this semester, and you were really afraid that other people were going to be able to decide where you got to end up and you weren't going to have any power over it. And that's a little scary. So I'm going to say that we've used our background knowledge right here, and we've used our background knowledge of how it feels to be making decisions like that, or to feel like other people are making decisions for us. And this might show us even more about what Harry's feeling here at the beginning of this passage. The whole hall burst into applause as the hat finished its song. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and then became quite still again. So we've just got to try on the hat, whispered Ron to Harry. Ah, kill Fred. He was going on about wrestling a troll. Harry smiled weakly. Yes, trying on the hat was a lot better than having to do a spell. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the word weakly right here, because I think when we smile weakly, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're too excited. Yes, trying on the hat was a lot better than having to do a spell, but he did wish they could have tried it on without everyone watching. So why would Harry wish that he could have tried it on without everyone watching? I think that's an important question to write right here. So as I'm reading this, I'm asking, what is making Harry wish that he could try on the hat all in private, so that nobody was watching him and nobody could see what happened there? And I think that reveals even more about what Harry is feeling here. The hat seemed to be asking rather a lot. Harry didn't feel brave, and he didn't feel quick-witted, or any of it at the moment. If only the hat had mentioned a house for people who felt a bit queasy, that would have been the one for him. So Harry doesn't feel brave, and he doesn't feel quick-witted. So he just needs a house for people who feel queasy. That's how Harry's feeling right now. Professor McGonagall now stepped forward, holding a long roll of parchment. When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted, she said. A horrible thought struck Harry. There's another descriptive word. as horrible thoughts always do when you're feeling this way. What if he wasn't chosen at all? What if he just sat there with the hat over his eyes for ages until Professor McGonagall jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake and he'd better get back on the train? There weren't many people left now. Moon, Knott, Parkinson, then a pair of girls, Patil and Patil, then Perks, Sally Ann, and then, at last, Potter Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second, he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind, either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes. And a nice thirst to prove yourself, now that's interesting. So where shall I put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. Okay, so that's a good action word, gripping. What are we usually feeling when we're gripping the edge of our stool? Not Slytherin, eh? Said the small voice. Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. Okay, so here's the turning point of the passage. It's pretty close to the end, but here's the turning point. So the action that happens is that the Sorting Hat right here tells Harry the news that he wants to hear. He has not been put in Slytherin, and he has been put in Gryffindor. So that is the turning point. That's the thing that happens in between what Harry's feeling at the beginning and what Harry's feeling at the end. So the last part of this passage goes like this. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin. He hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. So J.K. Rowling gives us his feeling at the very end, and that feeling is relieved. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take all of the things that we've thought about and all of the things that we've noticed throughout J.K. Rowling's J.K. Rowling's passage here, and we're gonna try to figure out if we can find one word to describe how Harry's feeling right now. So all of the background knowledge that we've accessed, all of the words that we've found, and the different questions that we've asked throughout the passage, we're going to look at those, and we're going to look at where we've made note of those and think, how do all of these point to one feeling, and what is that feeling? And so we might come up with different answers, because one really cool thing about literature is that we can learn all sorts of different, each reader can get all sorts of different things from it. And so the word that I picked right here, and you might pick a different one, is anxious. So as you can see, Harry began feeling very anxious, and then the thing happened that he was so afraid of, and then at the end, he finally felt relief. And so that's how we draw inferences in a text, and this is one of the strategies that we will continue to use throughout all the different literature that we use.